Hi, welcome to the UNG PSSA. This week's going to be a little bit different. The first part of the meeting is going to be talking over a topic that we already had during the semester, which is the Israel-Palestine conflict. And then the latter half will be doing elections for next year. So if y'all want to go ahead and start on our first topic, feel free.
Okay, we will also, for anybody who are newcomers here, we will be passing around an attendance sheet. And if you put your name down on, we will verify your attendance. If we put a faculty name next to it, we will contact that faculty member. We cannot guarantee that you'll get any credit for it, but we will verify your attendance. We are also live streaming over our YouTube channel. Please check that out when you get the chance, UNG PSSA. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was going to say it's a very divisive topic. What is happening, of course. It happened, what was it, October 7th of 2023? I think that's right, yeah. I remember being in my dorm room, seeing the news articles coming out, just popping up saying when Hamas had the attack against, when they started invading the southern part of Israel, and like there was paratroopers coming in, people from like up in the sky, there were people getting kidnapped. There was the concert massacre that happened, and I remember just watching. I'm like, oh my god, this is up there with like the Ukraine war. I'm like, this is going to be a massive event. Like, I already knew, like, seeing this. I'm like, this is bigger than any other Israeli-Palestinian conflict that I've seen, at least in my lifetime. I know there's definitely been worse previously, but I remember going on Twitter after seeing that and just seeing people just losing their minds, like, trying to get as much information, seeing the footage, seeing people, like, seeing massacres of it. But after almost 2 years after this point, this October will be 2 years, it still feels like kind of like it hasn't really gone anywhere. Like, in a sense, like it has been dragged on, and people, mainly on the Palestinian front, are getting it's horrible what's happening there. And it feels like, honestly, with Trump being in office now, with him talking about the U.S. going in there and taking over Gaza and stuff like that, to do, I don't even know what exactly his policy is to do that. It's just insane to see this happening still. And again, two major world events happening within a year of each other, the Ukraine war and then this, and they're still happening now, years later with no resolve. It's just insane to think like this many events have happened in just a short span of time in the last just 3 or 4 years.
Did any of you guys get to go to, right after the conflict first started, there was a professor event where they talked about the ongoing conflict and like what they were thinking of like what would happen and stuff. I feel like that made me more aware of it in general, but also like honestly a little freaked out because they were talking about like tunnels and stuff. What would this mean? Would America be like having troops on the ground? Would like what would the conflict end up ensuing? And I think it's just become like, I mean, I guess there's like the phrase like war is hell. It's just sad, and it's just continuing to drone on in a way that I don't think people thought it would. Like, I think people thought it was going to be like a fast, like really horrific conflict and then it would end, and it hasn't been that way.
Well,
yeah.
This is where we get into the discussion, like, you know, the really controversial stuff. Israel is currently being tried for genocide. It is currently being prosecuted for it. You know, Netanyahu has an arrest warrant out for being a war criminal. You know, and several members of his cabinet also have the same arrest warrant. And, you know, calling it like a war or a conflict might have been true for the first, you know, like couple of like months of the war when, you know, there were some Hamas militants to fight. But I mean, after they've leveled the entirety of the Gaza Strip and have killed like 50,000 people by this point, and you know, now their policy is stay here in like this basically like death zone, or, you know, leave, which is in both instances would be ethnic cleansing, which is either killing them or forcing them to just leave, you know what I mean, leave their home, everything that they've ever knew, ever will ever know, and just, you know, casting them to the wind, you know. And I think it's difficult because it really is at this point, a one-sided conflict, you know? What power does Hamas have to inflict any damage upon the state of Israel? Because, I mean, if we're going to compare death counts, I think Israel got them back, you know, by a magnitude of like 10x, you know what I mean, like easily. And they have all of the power. We are giving them billions of dollars in weapons and aid. They, you know, Hamas doesn't have an air force. Israel has an air force. They can bomb indiscriminately, recklessly. They've killed, I believe, like ballpark 300-ish aid workers. And, you know, many journalists have been killed. And I think that it really indicates that this goes beyond just a simple, like, oh, like, you know, it's the Middle East, they're back at it again, you know what I mean, or something like that, you know, like trying to say it's like we're back in the cycle, you know what I mean, of violence. This is something a little different. It's something more, you know, final, something more, you know, they're trying to cleanse the Gaza Strip, essentially, and they don't want the Palestinians to be there. They want to completely take over the territory, and they want all of the Palestinians who are there to not be there anymore. And no matter which way that they have to do that, it would seem that they are perfectly okay with the option of them dying.
Okay, we'll go to Sedona, but before we do that, you brought up something that makes me wonder. What I was going to ask is this more of the, you know, Israel and Palestine have been in conflict for, seems like forever. Is this more of that, or is it something different? But you can go ahead.
I'll answer that first. So I think it's something different. Obviously, only time can tell. I think we all wish we could, you know, predict the future in this situation, but I feel like because of how long it's been going on since Israel's founding in 1940? 47. It's just been like incessant since then. I mean, we have the small breaks in between, but it does feel different now, and it kind of leads into what I was planning on saying, that I agree a lot of people are coming to the consensus that, you know, Israel has gotten them back 10 times harder, and this is ridiculous and it needs to end immediately. And seeing kind of all the world actors come to that conclusion, granted, I think everybody else came to that conclusion before our leadership came to that conclusion, and it's obvious in the media, and I've researched it just a tad, but like the American media obviously gives a like kind of preferred or like lighter view of Israel when they're talking about it in our media. And then I've also been looking at Israel this whole semester for a class, and seeing how their own media covers it as well, and you're talking about the journalists that are getting, you know, killed and prosecuted and all the above. And yeah, Netanyahu's just a really interesting case. He's obviously the longest serving prime minister of Israel, which I think plays into why it's different this time. I mean, he's been up there for like, I think almost 20 years now. So I think everybody's just kind of ready for that change. And like, the more that it keeps going, I think the more Israel's kind of screwing themselves by like, everybody else is just going to continue to get more angry with them and more angry with them until eventually we do end up with the two-state solution, which I think is where we're headed, but I think it's overdue.
Those of you over here want to jump in, feel free to do that. This is not meant to be limited to just this side, so I'll keep checking if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to jump in, feel free to do that. Yeah.
I mean, you know, this one, like, you know, this one can get like more controversial, right? But like, I mean, if we think back to the creation of Israel, like its modern, you know, state, you know what I mean? The Arabs were already living there, you know what I mean? And then after the Ottoman Empire got destroyed, Britain betrayed the Arabs. They said they were going to give the Arabs a united kingdom. They didn't. They split it up between themselves. Iraq, Syria, Jordan, the Saudis took Arabia, obviously, and, they created the Jewish Mandate of Palestine. And then obviously after World War II, right, there was a very, high incentive to create a Jewish state, right? And they chose their ancestral homeland, that they had been, diaspora. They had left, they had not been there for, hundreds of years, By this point, there were, white Europeans, even though they had come out of this horrible tragedy. And then they come in, and if the Arabs don't move, they fight them, And it was violent. There was violence from the very beginning of the, Jews moving in and, clearing off and forcibly creating the state via violence in this region. And they've ever since they've encroaching and taking more land, taking more territory, sending more settlers in to slowly, neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, take more land and push the Arabs out, marginalize them, cast them aside, and it's something that requires like a fundamental change in the way that like Israel operates as like a country. It needs to. I personally am leaning more towards like a one-state solution, because I think if you have like that segregation of like Arabs are like outsiders and they're like in their like own like kind of like hushed like ghettoized parts, it's much more easy to dehumanize them. It's much more easy to see them as lesser. I mean, you saw this in the United States. I mean, you still see it today because like we still have some segregation going on where like going to school with like black children allows you to see them as like people. You might even have them in your friend group and you're more likely to see them as like equals, people. And I think that a one-state solution would allow like Arabs and Jews to like live amongst each other, possibly start families amongst each other, and like actually like develop and grow into like one community.
I know there have been small attempts at that. I mean, you're definitely in the minority in supporting a one-state solution, but I know that there have been small programs here and there about getting Palestinians and Israelis together in sort of everyday activities. I know but that's very much the minority of any of the actions going on there. Go ahead.
I feel like it's very much idealistic, the idea of a one-state solution, because right now what we have is a lot of emphasis on the memories. We see that the Middle East as a whole, particularly that region has been a very violent region. It's a region that has seen a lot of changes and a lot of violence from a lot of ethnic groups and a lot of groups against each other. So having this history since, what you were saying about the foundation of Israel in 47, there's always been this violence, there's always been this conflict, there's been this displacement of Arabs, and that is something that in the collective memory of the Palestinian community holds a lot of weight. And it is wishful thinking on what I believe would be wishful thinking is to say, we just put them together and don't mingle, because those memories carry, right? They have this national identity that is tied to their ethnicity. And it's this very same thing for the Israelites. They have this concept of what it means to be a member of Israel, of what they should do. And there's obviously far left, far right, as in every single part, but it's very much a tenet of what it means to be in Israel. And it comes and it butts heads with Palestine. I feel right now, as you were saying, we have the longest serving prime minister in Israel. And we're seeing a bid by that ruler to, in the short term, increase his hold on power in Israel.
He's already trying.
He's already trying, and he's succeeding. But that's one of the reasons why he's looking for new gaining grounds in Syria and showing that as a win for Israel. Trying to maybe align themselves with other parties in Israel and Syria to hopefully gain territory there. Destabilizing Palestine so they can gain more ground, appealing more and more to the right of Israel so that he can have a stronger base upon which to support himself. And that in the long term, of course, it's not gonna play good because he has a lot of...
the right has ever been, and we can all make some assumptions.
Mm-hmm. And he's surrounded by enemies, and eventually he's gonna run out of allies. and there's only so far that we can support and be supportive of such type of behavior, right? So it is really difficult. I don't believe just because of how much has happened that we can just simply see this as an idea that we can just mingle together and history does not matter. But then what do we do? Because none of them by now are able or wanting or willing to move. This is a issue of existence for both of them, because their identity is tied to where they're from, and their national identity and their strength and their spirit is in that land. And ultimately, none of them want or are willing to move. So what can we do to prevent them? Like, is this going to be a one-state solution in which is this going to be people from Israel and then we're going to see complete genocide of Palestinians? Or what is going to happen?
I wanted to let you respond if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's just when, like, you know, in thinking about this, it is Israel who holds the cards in the scenario. They're the ones that would have it. Like, the onus is upon them to, you know, create the bridges and, like, you know, and, you know, you're talking about, like, how, like, the Palestinians, you know, don't forget what's happened, but I mean, they don't really have to forget because they're presently living in, you know, the bad times. And I think, you know, if you could, you know, I think, because personally I would think that the best, like, I think that you'd have to get a little anti-democratic in the sense, like, you'd have to have some kind of, like mandated proportional, like, Arab, like, Jewish representation in, like, a one state, you know what I mean, where, like, you have to split it 50-50, you know, Arab, Jew, just to make sure that there's no, you know, like, one side can't, like, you know, they're forced to compromise with each other, right? So, like, you know, there would have to be some anti-democracy there, you know, not letting the people, like, vote exactly the way they want. But I mean, if you stop the violence, I mean, Israel has all the power in the world to guarantee the security, like, within the borders, you know what I mean? So if you were able to do that, you know, and then, you know, mix up the police force, you know, so that there are equal numbers of Palestinians on the streets, like, enforcing the law as there are Jews on the street enforcing the law, you know what I mean? I think you could gradually erode. And I mean, like, when the first generation of Palestinians is born, not having experienced that kind of oppression, I think that'll ease the burden.
Sorry, you said you wanted
go
to talk too. But I feel like that it's a very, and I don't wish to come up as rude or attacking your point, but not you, but your point. But I feel like it's wishful thinking. Is it like, oh no, they're just not being oppressed, like, immediately, but they're still gonna see, like, they are absolutely gonna be exposed to the history of what their people were. Just, you know, we didn't just say, oh yeah, we're gonna integrate schools and therefore black people are just not gonna see the influence of segregation of what they say. I mean, it is still very much a thing that happened. It's still gonna be very much an underlying problem inherent to the social culture that is gonna be there. I don't see a time in which you can see Palestinian children peacefully cohabiting with the people of Israel without taking into account the history that they have. These are just simple facts of, like, like a trauma in the collective psyche of the Palestinian people and of the people of Israel too, because you would see old people talking about the war and from both sides, and there's resentment that goes back for generations. And it's something that we need to understand how we can approach it, or if there's even a way that they can simply approach that. Just cohabitation is not gonna, it is certainly a step, it is necessary. I'm not saying it's not viable at all, but just the simple existence of an anti-democratic rule forcing people to cohabit that don't want to cohabit, we have seen it go up in flames in the Balkans. And we have seen how that happened in Yugoslavia, where a lot of people who just didn't want to be together were forced to be together and to mingle, and that led to more ethnic cleansing and to more genocide and to, there's no good and bad side, right? They both hated each other, and that war provided even more grounds to hate each other.
You've been waiting, Sedona, haven't you?
No, I know, but now I'm interested. They can go.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, you know, if you want, you know, like, I mean, I would like to think, I mean, I know it's not like perfect, it's not like, oh yeah, we live in like a post-racial society or whatever, right? But I mean, I'd like to think that like relationships between like whites and African Americans have improved, you know what I mean? There's more like interracial marriages, there's more like intermingling, you know, just like in general, right? And I mean, sure, there's going to be that initial grit, there's going to be that initial grain. I mean, we had it here, you know, white flight out to the suburbs, you know, like, you know, people, you know, blocking the kids from getting in at Little Rock, Arkansas. We had to send in like paratroopers to like open up the gates. But I mean, I think you have to clear that hump. You have to clear the friction. You have to force your way through it. You know what I mean? And I think that's just, you know, there's going to be friction, right? But the alternative is like, you know, they can't coexist. And I just fundamentally reject that. Like two people just are incapable of coexisting. I think that, you know, there might be some friction at the beginning. There might even be some like trouble. There might be terror both ways. You know what I mean? But I think if you firmly commit to it, it'll change.
Okay, go ahead.
Hot take, I guess. Obviously, we could point out like, you know, the problems and benefits of the two-state and one-state solution. One benefit I will say towards the one-state solution, and one that like just consistently bothers me when I'm thinking about the two-state, is like the religious, you know, like sites, like historical sites, and they're shared between these two, well, probably way more than two religions actually, but you know, there are these shared spaces, and in that sense, how can we split those up? Like how? That's not possible. But then, when you think about, to me, and I know this sounds maybe a little crazy, but the way that the UN kind of wrote out Israel to be when they were handed the problem of Palestine was, to some degree, obviously not a two-state solution, but the point was cohabitation. So from my perspective, I feel like we've been trying cohabitation for so long, and it just keeps going into conflict every time. And I understand it's a bit of a bridge and a stretch that I'm making between the two, and you know, there's a lot of technicalities that go into it, and maybe it's not even viewed that way at all over there. But the way that I hear like Netanyahu, you know, ramping up his followers, saying like, I don't believe that a two-state solution is possible. I don't think we can cohabitate with Palestinians. Like, we're trying to do it now, and it's not working. But I guess I'm more so referencing like the shared spaces of like Gaza, and I don't know like obviously the exact partition plan of the UN, so I don't want to say too much. But I see your point on like, if we could just get past this big roadblock, that would be fantastic. But I feel like we've been trying to get over that roadblock for so long, and I just don't know if it's possible.
I mean,
Sorry, I see your point on what you're saying, and we cannot just simply say, oh shit, we can't fix it, and just leave it be. But then again, coming back to what you were saying, how can we actually enforce those things? How can we force these people like Israel? I mean, right? There's one of these heralds of military might who is gonna go around and just bust them around, be like, hey man, you gotta dial it back, you gotta do all this and do all that. We can try to exert a united front, a bloc to unite people and unite countries against and try to push for these policies, but ultimately the enactment of this is gonna require NGOs, it's gonna require structures, it's gonna require commitment from the international community, and it's something that, as you were saying, we have been trying since basically the inception of Israel, of the Israeli
And I'm not
state.
saying that the international community has been doing a good job either.
Oh, yeah,
I think
no.
that's the bigger problem. Nobody's doing a good job right now, you know.
Okay, we have a comment from over here.
I was kind of gonna, you know, respond to these countries having a coexisting relationship. I kind of disagree. I kind of think that there's too much happening. A lot of lives have been lost, and I feel like coexisting means that you kind of have to kind of forget what happened, and people are not going to forget that easily. No matter how many organizations and programs you put up with people, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work that is going to make people trust again, and, you know, have those differences not result in a war again. I just disagree with that.
Okay, so who wants to field that? So this has been going on for decades. Some might even say millennia. You want to? I'm sorry, I keep good, but I want to give everybody else a chance to. Go ahead.
I'm not saying that it's the right thing or a good thing in general, but if we look at the way it's going right now, Israel is probably likely, if they continue to get the support that they are, going to consume Palestine. And that's just how the conflict's going to probably end. I don't necessarily, genocide is horrible, hurting people, it's a war. But whether or not they get all of these things where they're like put as like war criminals or they get sanctioned or other things, I don't think it's necessarily going to stop them at this point. I think that the efforts to try and cause like peace treaties and to have like these different like 2-state options, 1-state option, it's just going to be, it'll stop the conflict for maybe a month or 2 if we're lucky, and then it starts back up, and then Israel just continues to hammer Palestine, which can't protect itself.
I think there actually is a pretty big partner that Israel relies on incredibly heavily, and it's America. America keeps the lights on in Israel. Like, we heavily subsidize their existence, especially their security. If America turned the faucet off, their like sophisticated military would overnight gone. Like their sophisticated military is based off of like our weapons, our manufacturing, and it's mutually beneficial for us because we get to test out all of our cool new weapons. You know what I mean? We get to have the IDF test out all of our like new laser missiles and all that. You know what I mean? But like they do heavily rely on us for their security. You know what I mean? And if we were to turn it off, you know what I mean? The Iron Dome would fail. They wouldn't be able to replenish like their fighters. They wouldn't be, like we can turn the faucet off and like cut Israel's funding. I mean, that's what like all the pro-Palestinian like activists are advocating for. You know what I mean? And they also advocate for like boycotting. To lock off their economy. Like we did in South Africa during the apartheid, we boycotted them, hurt their industry, they had to cave, So, I mean, Israel can be stopped, and the only reason that you can see this in the UN, there's like every UN vote, where there's like, oh, should like food be a human right? Everyone votes yes, America and Israel vote no, you know what I mean? Like we are in lockstep together. We're very close security partners, we're very close allies. And Israel is only able to continue doing as it does because America, gives it the weapons, gives it the money to do so. And in terms of like coexisting, I wouldn't say we've attempted coexisting, you know what I mean? Because we're still segregated into 2 states, you know what I mean? They're the other, they live on the other side of the wall. I mean, they've literally built a wall. They've walled in the Palestinian parts, and they have these very like judicious checkpoints, you know what I mean? And they, sometimes send in their police in to like go like just go in there, rough things up and like remind them that they're there. And it's like I don't really consider that like you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't really consider it coexistence, you know what I mean? I wouldn't consider that like a genuine attempt at coexistence, because I think the state of Israel, since its conception, has not really been interested in coexistence. They've been interested in creating Israel, like from the top to the bottom. Like, they don't want to share with the Arabs, like at all.
Okay, so I think we have a couple of last words here, and then we'll probably need to go into our elections and make sure that we have enough time. So Nicholas and Zidane.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say, you were talking about this, the United States holding the purse for Israel and being an enabler for this type of behavior, and I agree with you. The thing is, who are we letting these people, like who are these people, these interest groups that are behind the push of this rhetoric, the push of a constant struggle and constant war? I don't want to sound like someone who has a conspiracy theory, but we all know the strength of these markets, of these companies that get a big revenue from the state of affairs that is war, selling bullets, selling ammo, selling missiles, selling the technology for the sustenance and the maintenance of these types of equipment. Of course, the United States holds a lot of power in that. Israel does itself too, because it sees hard power and military might as intrinsic to their sovereignty and their capabilities to exist. with a violent history that they've had. So what can we do? Ultimately, that's the point. That's what I believe that we are all trying to discuss here and understand. What can we do as regular people and with people with our representatives? How can we advocate against these groups that have such a big hold on Washington and on our representatives? What can we do to show people all across the globe that we are against these type of behaviors?
I mean, like, maybe we've been seeing what has been happening, you know, on campuses all across the country. Students, like, you know, with every big giant social issue have mobilized, you know, and I mean, the government has responded by cracking down and like straight up like 1984ing someone and like taking their green card and like deporting them because, or like, you know, in the process of attempting to deport them because they dared, you know, join in the protests. And, you know, it's, you know, and you know, a lot of like, you know, if you're like a dumb like anti-Semite and you're like really stupid, you'll be like, oh, Jews control everything or whatever. But like, it's evangelicals. Evangelicals are the biggest supporters of Israel. It's not even close. Like if you're looking at like the organizations that support Israel, like in America, it's evangelicals like 10-1 for Jews. It's like not even close. You know what I mean? And I mean, a lot of these campus protests were like, you know, led and like, you know, organized by like Jews as well. You know what I mean? So it's not like a Jewish thing. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's kind of the same thing that happened with Saudi Arabia, you know what I mean? Saudi Arabia, pretty horrible. I think we all agree on that. Yeah, we keep selling them stuff and we keep, you know, having them as a security partner in the Middle East. And it's because they're our allies, so we just like them, you know what I mean? They side with us against Iran, who hates us. So we just give them, we just let them do what they do in Yemen and, you know, Sudan. And we just like, oh yeah, just go ahead, you know what I mean? We just give them a blank check because they're our ally.
Okay, Sedona, last word, and then we'll move on to the next part of our meeting.
I'd say most of my points were pretty much hit there. I mean, it's the reason this war is going on for 2 years is because this conversation could go on for literally ever. I mean, like I said earlier, there's so many benefits and harmful things that could come from a one-state or two-state solution. It's just so difficult, especially looking at Russia and Ukraine, and like, I think everybody is just starting to really feel the tensions between the world leaders now, especially with the U.S. Kind of versus everybody else, and definitely to that point about the U.S. stepping in line with Israel pretty much the whole way. And I remember hearing about it during the elections, and both sides are like, we're gonna support Israel's right to defend themselves. I'm like, they're already beyond defending themselves. What are we talking about? So, yeah, it just all comes down to what do we do?
Okay, Anita, you wanna?
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to. So you guys can see things. I wanted to start with the president's race, and so we have two people going for president, Ms. Sedona, and then also me. And I also wanted to see how you guys would want to do the elections, like if you guys just want to do like raised hands, or we can also just like write our votes on the document. That's that I print out. So which one would you guys like to do?
I think it should be as much of a secret ballot as possible.
Yeah.
And you also
On
want
the
to
on our constitution, it
if-
was like hand voting, so that's why I still mentioned
if
it.
you want to give, you know, short statements or speeches, I think you can do that.
I was going to mention that in just a second.
Okay.
Do you mind if we steal your pen?
Yeah.
Mr. Qualley?
But yeah, I think it should be that, and you should also consider allowing people on UNG Connect, members on UNG Connect, before we make a final.
Yes, I put a thing on the UNG Connect that we were
Good.
doing that today.
Oh.
I don't know how to do the voting system on UNG Connect. It wasn't shown to us.
We'll see if we can figure it out.
Okay.
But we should at least consider that.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead, maybe give a little.
Do we have enough for
Sorry,
everybody
yeah.
here?
I'm just going to pass them around and then they can be. And we can see everybody. After she and we both talk, we can like vote.
So you want to look at it?
Good. Okay.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sonata Ferron. This is my second semester coming to the PSSA meetings. It kind of has helped me to discover that I wanted to be a political science major, and coming and engaging in these conversations has just been really fun. And coming up with like topics like Anita and Dom have done such a good job of doing for the past year. And the run up to the election last semester I think was so fun. And I literally made my schedule around this. I was like, I can't have class at 1 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. But yeah, I just think if you told me like maybe in high school that I'd be coming at noon on Wednesdays every week to come and talk about politics, I'd probably think it was a little silly, but I've had so much fun doing it and I would really love to continue doing so. As either president or vice president, I really am just happy to be here. It's a good time.
Anita, you want to say a few words?
So, hi, I'm Anita. You guys may have seen me at the meetings. I'm currently the vice president, and I really enjoyed getting to help with the organization, trying to expand it, provide events for students. And I just want to continue to be able to do that and hopefully expand the club and be able to provide for like more events like how we did with like the judge and the judge and the whole county clerk getting to talk with us and trying to like provide for events like that. And also trying to get more students involved in like having teams for different things like the social media team and stuff like that. I really enjoyed getting able to learn like leadership and stuff with this club, and I would love to continue. So also for the votes, just you can write the first initial by the line. We're going to do presidents first, so I'll just and then we can just like pass it around.
Write your own first initial or the person that you're voting for initial?
They're voting for.
Okay.
Yeah, that way we can tell the votes.
Okay.
And you just write it next to the thing. Do we have another pen so we can have like something to go around?
We just put the first initial for voting.
Yes. I had a whole pack of pens that I thought threw in the bag. And I did not.
Yeah, I assume we're going to have enough time to do that.
Ranking. Are they doing? Oh yeah, they're doing president now, right?
Yeah.
Mr. President, right now. And we'll just pass one more.
By the way, I certainly don't want to interfere in the election, but regardless of the outcome, I hope both of you will be participants in some form or another next year.
Absolutely.
Not gonna vote for president. Get to vote for president.
We can vote for ourselves, right?
I
No.
did. I think
Okay.
so. It's on our constitutional rules. Yeah. Do you want to? And then we'll go to the vice president.
Okay.
So
Are
since
they all on different?
they're going to these two.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So-
Okay, so I'll,
And then we'll make it the vice president since she goes to.
well, we'll do that next. We'll do that next. So we have, so you want me to announce?
Just.
Okay. Oh, I thought you wanted me to announce the total.
Sorry. I was just wondering what it is, if you want to do that or like wait to do it next.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, we should do that. We should give at least some. So why don't we go on to the one vice president?
The only thing is that.
Oh, you won't know,
So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't know.
Do you want to just go right?
U of V, the PSSA doesn't know how to do elections.
It's rigged.
You know, we're calling ourselves out here.
Count the ballots.
We don't get to talk about elections anymore.
Okay, so technical difficulty was trying to decide whether we should do UNG Connect or not. Do you guys want to do UNG Connect? Or just go by the votes here?
I'd go the votes here.
I feel like, yeah, there's the people that show up.
Are y'all okay with that?
Yeah.
And do you want to announce it?
Okay, well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 votes for Anita, 2 votes for Sedona, and 1 vote for R. I don't know what R is.
Oh, that was me. That was me. I'm trying to fumble.
That's all right. So, congratulations, Anita.
Okay, so now we will do the
Vice
vice president,
president.
which hopefully, now that we got the hang of it, it'll be Nicholas Zamudio.
Yes, Samudio. Yes.
And then Savannah Throne. And since you already gave words, you also want to.
I might. I'll just let him go.
All right. Oh, just hello everyone. My name is Nicolas. I wish I would have learned about this association y'all have way before. I've only been here for the last 3-4, but it's been a total blast. I am gonna be honest. I have no experience doing any type of these things before, but I'm willing to give it my all. Again, as she said, I have never thought that I was gonna be the type of person to just come here and do this, but now I see myself getting up, a little bit earlier and just making the way up all over here and coming and putting in the effort and just hearing what everyone has to say is just so rewarding to me. And I love talking to people about these type of things, and I feel that this type of discussion is necessary. So if I get chosen for VP, I would try to coordinate more efforts. So hopefully we can have not only political science majors here, then we can hear what other people have to say and just be more active, because I feel like this is the type of club that we would really benefit for having more people and having more interesting discussions. So that's it. Whatever you guys vote, I'll be happy to be here hopefully next semester and still seeing the same faces and some new faces. Thank you guys.
Okay. Sedona, you want to say something?
Obviously, already spoke, but I forgot to mention that I'm a junior. I think this is my second year as a political science major, and yeah, I just love the the partisan discussions that we're able to come in here and have. I think it's really special, and I think it's underrated. It has helped me kind of get into clubs outside of this as well, which I think is so fun, bringing together the Young Dems and the College Republicans and the PSSA. So doing more of that could be really fun. And yeah, same thing. I'm going to be here next semester regardless, so
Good.
you're not getting rid of me, but
It's good.
Okay, I will start passing out the different votes. Pens and pins. And I do also want to, if you guys, anybody here that would want to, participate in PSSA, there are other positions too that can have multiple members, and we're always here and open for nonpartisan discussions and trying to make everything open for everyone.
I'll just pass it. Here you go.
Am I allowed to see?
You can rig it. You can scribble everyone else's name out there, put your name in like
I
10
didn't write down
Just
yet.
I should have done
Yeah,
that.
you could have just rigged
So
the
this is
vote,
the
man.
last,
Be a
this
true
is the only
American.
other contested election that we have?
Yes.
Write mine twice.
Yeah, you could have been a true American. Just scribble everyone else's name out, put yours in. Dude, that would have been awesome.
You saw her. She wrote twice. She's stealing.
Has everybody voted?
Cheating.
I'm colluding with Russia.
Recount. You're not counting them fairly. None of them.
All right.
So we've got So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Sedona, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What do we do?
So we have 2 vice presidents, that's what we have.
I have called my
Good.
responsibility.
Let's do it.
You guys
I'm good with that.
fought each other or
Yeah.
something.
Good, okay.
It's either this or
that's
that.
good.
I'm
You want
happy.
to announce the rest of the team? that we
Yes,
have?
I would absolutely love to. So, first now we have our co-vice presidents. And for our treasurer, we have Marilyn Perez. And then for our social media team, we have our head Millie, and then we also have Marilyn, and then we will have Alyssa. And then for our voters guide, we have Anna Townsend, as well as for our reservation designee, we have Anna Townsend. And then for our voters, I already said voters guide team. And then for student representatives, we also have Alyssa. So those are our teams. If you guys would also like to look over so you can get names and stuff, I'm looking forward to working with y'all next year, and it's gonna be great, or next semester. But yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Thank y'all.
Well, good, congratulations to, oh,
Sorry, is there any more open positions available? Or are more fillable already?
Yes, so we can always use more members for our student representatives and voters guides, and if y'all are interested in helping with social media, please reach out to them or us too. So that'd be awesome. Thank y'all.
and thanks. This year, by the way, we still have a couple more crossroads to discuss. Thanks to Dominic for his leadership over the last year to take us to new heights with our YouTube channel, for example. And thanks to Anita and to Tyler, the current team, for again taking us to a really good place in the history of the Political Science Student Association. Next year will be our 33rd year, and I hope that all of you that are returning will be participants next year, and I'm really looking forward to it. But again, this is not the end. We still got 2 more weeks to go. So I don't know if we have a topic for next week or not, but we can worry about that. I'm sorry?
Can we do Venezuela again?
Yeah.
Can we bring Professor Harris?
It might be a little last notice.
Why don't you go ahead and invite him?
I'll ask him to show
Good, okay.
next week.
Well, also I think at the end of the year we usually do like an open mic, but I'm not sure. We're trying to figure out like end of the year events. But yeah, this was an awesome meeting. I think that is also close to some class times. But thank y'all for coming and thank y'all for voting.
All right.
Good job, Anita. Good job, Anita.
You missed it.
Yeah, no, I had to do a case for you.
How much that?
I hope so. Oh, you will, you will.